I'm so happy today to have special guests with the Register of Wills Plan, Prepare, Protect series. This show is dedicated to Black male engagement. I know everybody that's living in Philly see what's going on with our families and other people, families, particularly women and children are getting, just shot down like never before. And so this Plan, Prepare, Protect is dedicated to 4 Black male organizations, grassroots, some of whom I've worked with in the past, grassroots, others that I wish to work with and I will start continuing to work with. And then, of course, Gabriel Bryant, who I've always admired his tenacity and his truthfulness and his African-centered approach to healing our community. And so tonight, we're going to talk about some generational wealth. As you know, within the past couple of weeks, there has been some studies that have been released here in Philadelphia as it pertains to home ownership, generational wealth, and tangled titles. And the Pew Charitable Trust put out a study to let us know exactly where the tangled titles were, because I know you all have heard that we have at least 10,000 that we have identified through the study. And ironically, they are concentrated in the areas where there is a high concentration of gun violence. They are concentrated in 19143, 19139, that's West Philly, Southwest Philly, and Cobbs Creek Parkway. 19132, that's North Philadelphia. 19134, Lower Northeast. 19140, the Germantown area. And then there are tangled titles speckled in every area of the city. And so this was the first type of study performed in our history, mainly to see where our generational wealth is at stake of being lost to the tune of $1 billion. It's not just one person or one dead person named that the house is still in, but we're talking about families that live in these houses that can't buy homeowners insurance, they can't sell it, they can't pass the house down to their relatives, no home equity loans, no FEMA, no grant money, basic system repairs. So they're living in these homes all around these targeted areas that I just mentioned. And they're at risk of losing that generational wealth, which means families are going to lose homes. To me, primarily, it looks like in a lot of the gentrified neighborhoods. University of Penn did a study that said that for every one house that receives basic system repair grants from the city, it improves, decreases violence by 22%. Sort of the broken window theory. And when we match or superimpose the maps to the tangled title maps and the crime and violence and gun violence, they almost look similar. One of the things that I decided to do is to take this show on the road. Every Thursday, we have these shows so we can help Philadelphians understand the importance of making wills. If you own anything, any property, anything that you own, you have ownership. Cars, stocks, bonds, paintings, whatever, you must make a will. And the reason that you have to make these wills is you have to be able to transfer your generational wealth, and you can't do it once you're dead. It has to happen once you die. When you leave that will, it's ironclad. That's to say that will, I have to, as registers say, execute it. Yes, process this. This is how Mr. Smith said he wanted his wealth to be transferred down. Here's the fees, here's everything. boom, you're in and out of the office, as opposed to not leaving a will and then coming to the office. And then it's a whole bunch of processes that you have to go through in hearings to determine, who is the rightful heir. And at this point now, my brothers, of course, you know who those Tangled titles are. And my solicitor, Sharon Wilson, she's gonna give you all a little update on some of the programs that I'm doing here to help address that. And also, we're gonna start talking about what you all have been doing in our community. So before she starts, I wanna introduce our first guest, Mr. Eric Westbrook. He's the director of the Mayor's Office of Black Male Engagement, a very important post. He's going to talk to you about that and what they're doing here in the city and how to get involved. Mr. Joel Austin is the founder and executive director of Daddy University. So we're going to talk to him about, marriage and why some Black men are reluctant to marry nowadays, or we'll even talk about the ones that are getting married. But that's important. That's important generational wealth. And that is something that I oversee. My office issues marriage licenses, and we retain and preserve your marriage records. That's another one of my responsibilities. Mr. Gabriel Bryant, engaging males of color, grassroots organizer, just a perfect example of a young male that is doing things in our community, helping us learn how to eat properly, how to get educated, just always doing something in the community. And then last, Mr. Stanley Crawford. He's the organizer, president of the Black Male Community Council of Philadelphia, and he's a good friend of mine. And him and I, we worked on so many grassroots initiatives in Philadelphia, and we actually succeeded in a lot of them. Sharon, can you tell them a little bit about the Probate Deferment Initiative before we start with our guests, please?
Sure. The Tangled title issue really impacts people in a way that drives them away from the solutions they need to explore in order to untangle your title. We call a title tangled when the title is in the name of a deceased person. So in order to straighten it out, most of the time you have to raise an estate. And raising an estate can be a hindrance to actually untangling the title. So one of the programs that the Register initiated is called the Probate Deferment Initiative. If you come in to raise an estate and you say it's because you have a tangled title, you can apply for PDI and we will defer the probate fees associated with raising an estate. Most of the time it's about $500 or so, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the value of the assets in the estate. But what's most important is, in addition to getting the fees deferred, in association with the Department of Records, we will get the filing fee for the new deed waived, and we refer you to a legal services organization that will do the legwork in terms of helping you to raise the estate, draft the new deed, find any documents you need in between that to prove your relationship and your ownership and your eventual title to this property. Well, we refer you to legal services agencies that'll do that for you for free. So the program has been really helpful. It's very tedious to do this work. I've done this work personally. Untangling a title is not something that happens quickly. One of the things that came out of the Pew study is they think it costs between $7,000 to $9,000 of legal fees, not the other fees, just the legal fees to untangle the title. Of course, most people in this situation don't have that money. So this program is one that sort of gives you the boost to say, come on in, we'll defer the fee here at probate, we'll waive the fee for the deed, and we'll hook you up with a legal services attorney so you can get the legal portion of it done for free. And that's our PDI, or Probate Deferred Initiative program. Do you want to talk about just one other thing? Can I talk about that you're doing as well, Register?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, one of the most important things are things like this Plan, Prepare, and Protect series. We're raising education right now through social media. She has many social media platforms. She's on all of them, on the Twitter, on IG, she got it. And one of the other things she did is she, with the communications director, actually initiated a series called Register Reacts. And so we take these clips from TV series and movies that everybody knows, and we use those to highlight how important it is to write a will and what can happen if you don't. And because people can relate to these movies and these television series, they can also relate to the message that not writing a will can have some dire consequences for yourself and for your family. So education plus a real program that defers fees are two of the most prominent things that the register is doing right now to assist with the Tangle title problem.
And so those the things that I'm trying to do proactively to try to educate. You got to start this conversation about understanding what generational wealth is. I think a lot of the violence comes because they don't value they don't value their lives, and your generational wealth is your life, is your family life. And so I wanted to ask the first question to Gabriel. How did you learn to become financially literate?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, like many, Black men of color, you grow up in a family where you may not have access to that information as a young person, right? Perhaps the parents and caregivers and guardians, even the teachers in school, didn't provide that initial background information. I actually had to learn a lot of it when I actually ran into some credit problems in college. Because as many people know, that first semester in college, they give you all kinds of credit cards. And I started running things down the wire. And once that got me jammed up, because I'm spending on stuff and I'm paying 15%, 15% of each thing, and not the whole amount. I was like, wait a minute, something's wrong here. And I began looking at some of my friends at the time and saying, okay, what have they done? And began having conversations with them and their parents, because perhaps they were able to provide them with a skill set that I hadn't had. And at that point in time, I began going through the whole road and journey of picking up books and trying to think about those, different literature pieces, Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that whole kind of construct at the time. But also books that would just let me learn about investment. Books that would let me learn about, what does it mean to have an asset versus a deficit, all the kind of language that I didn't know coming up. And so really, I was probably into my early 20s, unfortunately, where I began to really begin thinking about finances, as a personal project, and also something that I could learn from continually, because the landscape is always changing, right? And so I think being open to learning also has helped me even now, so many years later.
I learned later on too. And it was like, I wish somebody had just gave me some fundamentals, just some fundamentals, How about you, Stanley?
I come from a large family. So at the age of 8, I had to hustle. I sold papers, I washed cars, I took orders at the A&P, I went junking. And I thank God that I was raised like that, because I always had that instinct to be able to earn something just simply by being necessity to be able to go out there and earn some money on my own. Also, like Gabriel, I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, Unlimited Powers by Anthony Roberts, and Multiple Streams of Income by Robert Allen, I believe his name is. And studying these books and really learning techniques that was being used by those who had been successful and incorporating them as I continued this journey, And as you know, I was in business. I had a non-alcohol restaurant. I had a mobile boutique. I had a stationary boutique. So, and that multiple streams of income is very important, because when I read that, it let me know that I was on the right track in reference to money. Now, here's another thing about money too. Once you spend it, you'll never see it, right? But if you learn how to make money work for yourself, and I take these young brothers in the street, they not as unintelligent as they are perceived, because when you out there in the street game, you have to know. And here's another thing: the game might change, but the math is still the same. If I buy clothes at $100, I'm gonna sell it for $150. I'm still using a different product, but I'm doing it in a different way. So I say all that to say this. Part of my learning was on the streets and is in the process of studying and then implementing what I learned from my studying.
You have to hustle like everybody else. That's how I thought. I remember I started my hustle cleaning my grandfather and grandmother's house after they used to have the parties. You know, of course, you find some quarters and stuff laying around as you cleaning, but you just start thinking of just ways to hustle, and it was just honest living. And yes, he had one of the, I never seen a mobile closet where he would pull up and his clients could actually come and get fitted. You still have that?
No, you know what? The fashion changed, and then I did this for 21 years. But when fashion changed, my interest lost. Because now people dress down; they don't dress up. Now, I mean, the bum look is in, so I'm out of business.
Thank you. I think it's an ongoing learning process, to be honest. But I think it first dawned on me, much like Gabriel, when Gabe shared how, in college, taking credit cards. And I think what really hit me was after college for me, student loans. I had no idea of just what I was getting myself into.
Yeah.
I was in college. I was in a city far away from home, and all I knew was I got to finish. And so I would take any loan, anything. I didn't even read half the stuff I took. I just said, give it to me. I'll figure it out. I just have to graduate. And I remember upon graduating, super happy. And I got a letter letting me know 6 months from now. And I remember just, having to deal with, having to pay it back and never really having a plan. I'd always been very just optimistic, and I've always just kind of believed like it would work out. But I realized at a later age, in my 20s, that no, that was just a lack of planning. And my father used to always say, when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And I think there was just something about planning that always kind of made me nervous. I always felt like, planning was just something maybe even too hard for me, too hard to think about. And so I didn't like thinking about it. I just like moving, just going, I'll figure it out on the way. And I quickly learned how that was just bad judgment, and I just wasn't making good decisions. And so for me, it dawned on me after college, when I had no idea how to pay this stuff back. I got the first job I got out of school. I wasn't making anywhere near what I thought I would be making. I was a social work major, and social workers make at least $100,000 right out of school, right? No, they
No.
No, they don't.
No, they are really
close.
disrespected. Seriously.
Yeah, them student
Social
loans
workers, no, it's hard.
And so when I got out of school, I was hoping for a lot more than what I actually made. And again, that was just, I didn't plan. I had this kind of pie in the sky mentality, and that really woke me up about finances and how, I have to be responsible. And so I began to look at books by Dave Ramsey and Larry Burkett, and even talk to folks in my faith community at my church to really get answers on like how to just be a better steward with resources, and start looking at the habits that I had that I didn't even know I had. What were some of the habits that I had? And even digging into this, why don't I like to plan when it comes to money? I kind of just believe the best and go for it, kind of almost live on this gambling mentality. And so I had to start looking at those things and started disciplining myself. And I say, I wish I had learned that a lot earlier, because it would have saved me so much more, but there's no time. Hey, whenever the light goes off, it's time to start learning. So thankful for that.
One thing, Eric, and all three of you, you talk about this moment where you realize I got to do something better. What is the spark?
I remember having a conversation with a buddy of mine in school, and we were just talking about, whose responsibility is it for my success? Like, who's responsible for my success? And it was one of those things that we, it was really an existential conversation. We were talking about like, who's really responsible for you in this world, in this life? And I think for me, it kind of dawned on me that, if what the decisions I make like directly impact my life. Like there's no kind of like do-over. This is it. This is my life. And I think that sobering moment was, again, when you start getting bills in your name with your name on it, and they're talking about taking your finances from your job if you don't pay. And now, mommy can't save me, daddy can't save me. No, my name is on that. And I think for me, it was really when I started recognizing the weight of adulthood. And I'd always, again, my imagination, I had this very unrealistic idea of life. And so when I started to see that, no, it's not just going to happen. And I had a friend that always used to tell me, like, Eric, a vision is a clear picture of a preferable future. Powerful speaker Miles Monroe used to say that, and I think that stuck with me. It's like, don't be afraid to plan. Think about your vision and plan for it. It's a fun thing. You should want to plan. It should be something you look forward to. But I think for me, I just always saw that as a drudgery until I started seeing, the sum of my decisions were directly impacting my own success or lack thereof.
So what was the goal of the Black Generational Wealth Series that your office hosted last year? And what was the outcome?
So the Black Generational Wealth Series, we started in 2020, right before COVID hit. The first one was in February of 2020. And, we started out, the whole goal of the Black Generational Wealth Series was to really create a space where we could welcome all different types of resources in our city that can help Black men and boys and all of our allies really build and maintain generational wealth. And the goal was to say, hey, listen, there are so many programs, there's so many resources right in Philadelphia that our community doesn't know of. And so we started doing some research prior to this series and started looking at Black men's involvement in different programs throughout the city. And we were, again, the number one demographic uninvolved. Black women were, I think, number one. And then everyone else, but then Black men, we were very low in terms of percentages of who was involved in learning personal financial literacy, or who was involved in going to this training program or that, or, this business. And so we were like, okay, we want to do something about it. Let's make sure we get resources and change that narrative, like get resources in a room where folks can come all together and learn about what this organization is doing, or learn about what Clarify is doing, or what city contracts, or aspiring entrepreneurs to come and learn from, those who own businesses that are further along. Like, let's build a community of folks that are saying, how do I build it and maintain and transfer generational wealth? And so that's where it started. The outcome of it was, the very first one we did that year was powerful. I mean, I think we had over 300 folks attend the 4 sessions that were throughout the month. We had an amazing time. We had people share their information with one another. We had a panelist that came out and really shared their programs and ways to get more involved in building this wealth. We had 4 different events, one that focused on personal financial literacy, another that focused on getting city contracts and learning how to, navigate the resources within the city if you're a company or business. And then we also, went on to talking about those that have transferred their businesses to their next generation. How did they do it? And how did they start? And really sharing those gems. And so it was a powerful series that even after COVID hit, when we went virtual, we still saw a good amount of folks still show up and attend. And so we know that this is a vital topic. We had y'all come out, which was huge, because, and I'm so glad, because when we talk about wealth, people automatically think getting rich. Let's go get this money and let's get rich. And we totally don't think about our assets now, what we own, protecting what we own, our wills, making sure that we're protecting ourselves. How about insurance? And really connecting, building those solid bridges that folks can get that folks can cross to get to the resources our city has to offer.
And I like what you said, the get involved part. Gabriel, tell us some of the things that you do. Why aren't our playgrounds filled with men and children playing basketball, baseball? That's generational wealth too. People seem to think generational wealth is not it's just material. They just think it's, oh, your house, your car, them gold chain. And they don't realize that just your breath of life, your quality of life.
And I agree with everything that you just said. Generational wealth is the vibrancy of a community. The ability for a community to continue to thrive and grow and expand and be enhanced by the spirits of the family members who are in that community. Parents, caregivers, children are on one accord. They don't feel threatened to their spirit and livelihood. And so all those things come into contact when it comes to generational wealth. A big part of that is generational health. Because if we don't, take care of ourselves, everything that we want to do with regards to our wealth is going to be out the window. Because now our issues of finances have been exacerbated tremendously. Because now we got a whole other range of bills that we have to deal with. A big part of the work that we're doing right now is looking at the mental health part of it, right? Due to a recent study, about 90% of Black men said that they currently feel stress. And the number one cause of stress right now for Black men is finances. 60% is finances, finance related. And obviously, as we know, that dovetails into other areas of our lives. And so one of the things that we've done is begin to look at how can we first maintain our source of mental health so that we can actually wake up in the morning and know that we can actually have a good day, period. Because, like I like to say, the stress of being a Black man is killing Black men, period. And if we don't understand the multiple areas and social determinants that impact Black men, we won't be able to get at the source and the root of how you make a Black man even want to go to a playground or want to go to a recreational space. Because guess what? His spirit isn't there. His soul isn't there. His idea of having fun isn't there. There's a dramatic and tremendous level of despair in our community. And particularly for Black males, when we're thinking about just the range of depression, undiagnosed and misdiagnosed mental health issues. And so one of the things that we've done is try to have sober, intelligent, safer spaces for Black men of all ages, intergenerationally, to have conversation, to have dialogue, and also to go to those spaces that they congregate at. Because maybe the playground isn't where folks are going these days. We all saw this past week that they have a new e-gaming center in West Philadelphia, right? 56 and what's that, Christian. Maybe young people are going to gravitate towards the gaming, and we can utilize the gaming as a space to open up safe dialogue around finances, around mental health, around stress, around tangled titles. Why not? And it's never too young to do those kinds of conversations. Say a kid's 15 years old from 55th and Springfield. Why not have that dialogue while he's playing 2K? There's ways to do that if we just have the political and personal will to introduce these conversations. And one thing I want to say in closing, that Sharon asked a question about what was that moment. For me, I had to realize that a lot of the men in my family and close men in my family were really having challenges with their health. And it was as a result of being stressed out, working 60 to 80 hours a week, and still feeling like they had nothing to show for it, and still feeling like they didn't have opportunity to, as men are socialized to do, take care of the family, take care, quote unquote, of the household. And so observing all of this, and as well as lots of my friends, I said, wait a minute, I can't put myself in the same position to be living that stressful of a life. Part of my wellness has to be being able to be financially well and financially literate and not being afraid of the paperwork. I think for many of us, the paperwork piece, right? We're out of school, right? That school thing is done. And so the fear of the unknown, the fear of these, 5 to 10 page contracts, 5 to 10 page deeds and titles, all of that language can be scary for some, but I will also offer to people of all ages and just for us right now in the room, embrace that fear, right? Embrace that fear and approach those paperwork in a way that can be helpful towards you and your family.
I just want to understand, in your interactions, do Black millennial men seem concerned about generational wealth?
Well, one thing you say, Tracey, and it reflected back to the elders in our community They used to always say a fool and their money will soon part. And I believe you was moving in that direction as we are accumulating this wealth to leave to our offsprings. We have to also educate them the value of money, the value of property, the value of life insurance, so they can see something. From my experience of being in the community as a result of the work that I'm doing, and this goes around with what we're talking about. First of all, I recognize we have to give especially our young Black males, something to live for and something not to kill for. See, listen, I'm not gonna kill nobody because I got something to live for. I'm not gonna do frivolous things because I got something to live for. And when you talk about living in the poorest, biggest city in America and not putting that a part of the equation of the despair that we're talking about, that is manifesting in our specifics, our young people, when they have no hopes and no dreams. You see, they wake up in the morning and they see these other ethnic groups working all around them in their community, making above livable wages while they on the corner shooting dice. I see this constantly in our community, but we have to be able to also have, and Eric, I appreciate you with what you're doing and Gabriel, because we need to come together and find multiple ways of bringing this into our young people sphere of existence. And my experience is this is my experience. We as the Black Male Community Council of Philadelphia, we go right in the hood. We go to Cleveland and Dolphin. Right now we at 10th and Brown. We there where the young people is at. And I'm telling you, these young brothers is not as unreachable as the perception is from the TVs and the newspapers and the radios. They are very receptive, but if we bring them this type of information that we're talking about here, they are ready to receive it. You know what I mean? So the point is, we have to figure out ways and mechanisms to get into their environment and then have this conversation with them and show them the logic and the rationality. This was one thing that I'm using my own experience for this now. Prior to me making a transition from the streets, I was, me and my crew, we was car thieves. We went to school for auto mechanics, but we wound up being thieves instead of mechanics. And at the end of the day, we started getting locked up. And I looked at my crew, and we was getting locked up. They was getting locked up. And I looked at this here, I say, either I'm gonna continue on this path, and then I looked at myself and I say, I'm more intelligent than this. And I made some moves that took me in another direction. And what was the impetus for this? I had 2 children and a wife, right? And one thing I looked at my father and my mother, because I come from a 2-parent home, my father and my mother sacrificing, both of them sacrificed with 9 children, but they was dedicated to us as their children. And my saving grace was that decision that I made to be dedicated to my children that made a whole transformation in my life from a negative to a positive. And then somebody mentioned Man Child of the Promised Land. That was the first book that I completely read and I could relate to. And as I relating to his experience and coming a lawyer and all these experiences, I seen myself in that book. But I also seen the transformation that occurred that moved me from maybe going up gratis for it or going in the Army. I went in the Army, got a marketable job skill and never looked back. And we need to have the ability to understand that these young brothers on them corners want the same thing, but they don't know how to get it.
This is a fascinating conversation. It really is. I'm happy. I'm as much listening as sort of participating. But at one point you were talking, Stanley, about how you like you got a lot of your skills from the streets and you were able to really translate those skills. And I see brothers that are smarter than they think they are. Right. And so I just want to know, y'all are all doing different work. How do you convince a young Black man to love himself?
First of all, I believe what we're doing here, and I think Tracey also mentioned this somewhere along the line, with the proper resources and the proper methodology, we can make a change in those young brothers out there in the corner. I'm gonna just tell you this short story right quick. Cleaning up down Cleveland and Dolphin. There was a young brother out there, he was slinging reefer. I wasn't worried about him slinging. We was cleaning up. When I first went down there, he called me OG. As we continued to clean up around him, And I went down there one day, and he had a charger plugged in the outlet in the front of the store. And I say, I will give a clean up here. Who's charging this? Because we don't want to sweep it. He say, that's mine's own. Just think about it. I went from being an OG to an own over a period of time. And then I seen him at Boarding Gerard. He ran up to my car. He said, "Oh, I got a job." And this young brother was out there slinging reefer. And I had no idea that his interest was to get off that corner and wind up with a job. Him and this young lady was together. And I was so excited about that experience, because I remember when he was on that corner, and first one of our guys was ignoring him, was making him ignore about asking him to come and help us. He said, "Listen, OG, I pay people to clean up this here. And you see that trash over there? We call 311 and they never come." That let me know he was a shot caller and he was concerned about the community.
And a lot of these young men in our communities are living in these single titles, or they're living in houses that their grandmothers or their mothers own, and there's no wills.
True.
You know, we're not talking about that. That's some serious, like, I just found it was a statistic. They said like 49% of Blacks in Philadelphia own their homes. And they said the city of Philadelphia is like the last of the city where home ownership is high for Black people. And where these tangled titles are, is they are in Black people areas. That's a lot of real estate. That's a lot of families that can stand to lose homes. And more than 70% of white families own their homes, compared with less than half of Blacks and Hispanic families. Philadelphia used to have the highest rate of Black home ownership in the country. Tangled titles have contributed to the erasing that distinction.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very deep conversation that we're having right now. You know, first of all, I think one of the things that we need to understand is, and you mentioned this, gentrification has really impacted our community. You know, I know young people personally, you know, young Black millennials who have told me, you know, Brother Gabe, Mr. Gabe, like, I grew up in West Philly. I'm an adult now. I cannot purchase a home in the neighborhood that I grew up in. Like, that's a heck of an experience to have. And I had that same experience with actually a cousin of mine up North Philly. Same experience. He said, "Gabe, you know where we live at, up north. Like, we grew up here, you know, we went to Gratz, you know, cousin so-and-so went to Vaux. I can't even purchase a home because the homes have tripled in price." And so I think there's a few things happening. One is that we have to address the political will and the developers that's happening that's really impacted our neighborhoods. We live in a city of neighborhoods, so people who are uptown want to stay in uptown. They weren't living uptown because grandma was in uptown. People in South Philly love South Philly, right? People in West Philly love South Philly, right? So these are the neighborhoods speak to the vibrancy, particularly of Black communities, right? Because mama and them used to stay down there. Mama and them used to go into the restaurant. And as Stanley said, his dad and family members own restaurants and things of that nature. So that hustle, that grind has always been tied to our neighborhoods. Like, it pains me when I look at Zillow sometimes, just to like look at it. And I'm seeing the exorbitant numbers of costs. And so a lot of that has to come down to home ownership and conversations. But also a big part of it is, you know, the despair piece has impacted the brain drain. And so what I mean by that is a lot of our Black millennial graduates who may have even been born and raised in Philadelphia, right? No matter what part of the city they're from, and maybe they go away to Penn State, maybe they go to Temple, maybe they go to Bloomsburg, wherever they go, they come back and say, "You know what? I'm gonna get more bang for my buck out in the county or in New Jersey." So now they're leaving Philadelphia, which adds on to the folks who are not owning homes in Philadelphia County proper. And so that also is a big part of it. People are looking at the despair, the heightened gun violence, the lack of care and attention paid to our school district, and saying, do I want to raise my children in this neighborhood? I'll take my chances out in media. And so now that affects Philadelphia, and then it affects our ability to hold on to those Black people who actually want to build, you know, strengthening families to keep our neighborhoods vibrant. And so I close by saying this: I think one of the things that we can do is continue to work and collaborate in partnership with these entities that we have on the call right now, but also look for new ways and innovative ways to strategize. So how can we, you know, take ownership of the land, right? The land is primary, the land isn't going anywhere. So what can we do to erase some of the blight and how do we take control of some of the blighted neighborhoods, blighted homes? There are so many out here, so many open lots that are available, and also using those means to employ, Black men and Black people in general to say, you know what can we do to utilize the trades to build up on these homes, right? To build up homes, to fix homes, right? So that mom who has a roofing issue, we can take care of that. Dad who has a basement issue, we can take care of that. And so we have to be able to employ and bring in those infrastructure and investment to make those changes happen. I'm gonna close by saying this too. You mentioned about, what it's going to take for us to think about love and have another person feel love. We do weekly sessions at the Justice Center at 48th and Haverford, right? With those young men, 13 to 18, formerly the Youth Study Center. Those young men in there are full of rage, full of fury, full of just mad at the world. What we've tried to do and what we've learned over the course of the past several years is the idea that what they most love is family, right?
Yeah.
They may not be loyal to a lot of other things, but if you ask them about their mom, about grandmom, about granddad, they have a supreme love for those folks, even though they may have some challenges with other members of their own family. But the family piece is key for them, right? And so how do we then turn that conversation around love for their family to love for the community? And we get there by consistency. Again, I said we're there every week. We're not there once a month. We're not there once a year for the holiday event. We're not there once a summertime. We're there weekly, so they're seeing a consistent, caring adult in their face that they can say, okay, you know what, Mr. Bryant actually does care about me. So when you do get discharged, and you see me out on the street, how many guys run up to me all the time? Because I saw them 2 or 3 or 4 times at the JJSC. Happens all the time. But they do that because we were there. We were consistent, and we gave them a resource that they could use.
I always try to tell our communities, and I try to show it too, that we have to take ownership to some of the public space here in Philadelphia. There are a lot of public space. I walk at the John Hines Refuge every day. That Schuylkill Bank, bank, they're getting ready to build another bridge. I will hope that, you all will incorporate just getting some of these guys that's full of rage walking in nature. Eric, what do you do? And what do you think that we could do to get us come together and give some leadership to some of these young people, while at the same time educating them on valuing generational wealth as their own life?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, with Gabe, with Stanley, with everything that has been said so far. I think there needs to be consistent engagement. And as you just spoke about walking in nature, just this past Saturday, we had our brother stroll. Our brother stroll is a health initiative. Yeah, that comes out of our office. And my coordinator of the office, Octavius Blunt, this was his brainchild that he'd been sitting on for a couple years. And he brought the idea to me and I said, man, we got to run with this. This is an excellent idea. It's a health initiative that really focuses in on bringing Black men and boys out together to walk and to stroll and to slow down in life and to focus on vision and to walk together, to build connections and relationships that help us set the pace for our own race in life. And we've had 4 of them now, and they've all been great in their own way. And we go to different parts of the city, we link up, we bring a bunch of community organizations out. And the goal is, again, to connect. And this one that we talked about finding your space, setting your pace, and running your race. Because I think, even as Sharon pointed out, of the self-love, sometimes there's so much that we're responsible for, we're trying to handle, that the last person we think about is ourselves, taking care of ourselves, our future, planning. If you're surviving and you're trying to figure stuff out for the now, you have very little time to think about or even consider your future. And so trying to create spaces, continue to have engagement opportunities where brothers can really be free to plan, to dream, to have the safe space to think about their future. And when we're talking about millennials, I'm a millennial, I'm 40 years old, and millennials are 40 now. You think about that. We're 40 years old now. And, but the pressure so many of us have not lived up to the expectations we had in our head. You know, by certain ages, we were supposed to have certain things done. And because of the times, the challenges, and so many things that have changed, a lot of us were not experiencing that. And so that all of that is on our head. We're carrying this sense of, I should be here. I should have been here by now. I should have this. All these things that are so unhealthy that weigh down on us and cause us to, you know, sometimes fall and slip into this despair and even depression. And I think even outside of just millennials, but as Black men and boys, you know, how do we make sure that we're creating events where brothers can slow down, where brothers can be free to dream, can be free to think, can be offered resources by trusted individuals that actually follow through. Because, you know, we're at a point now, we can't miss it. We can't have these gaps or these breaks in service. There has to be consistent flow and bridges that are solid enough for these brothers to get over and get to the resources. And so I think that's one way our office wants to continue to do it. We're partnering. Gabe, we partner all the time. Stanley, I definitely want to partner with you, brother. I love what you're doing. And even events like this, getting the word out about what exists, that helps us all like build sturdy bridges that these young guys, these men can come over and get what they need and begin to realize their visions.
Stanley, you know, is your generation, which is our generation, are they even talking about generational wealth? And is that something that you like to put as part of your curriculum? Because we certainly like to partner with you all.
Yes, well, one thing I think is important, we have a building we located in with the Nicetown Community Development Corporation and the NAC office. We have the 3rd floor and we have a multi-purpose room. And we do what we call Victims Impact, where my son developed a program, my oldest son, he developed a program where we go through a whole process, a whole course, so they can see how they're the victimizer and also the victim. And what we're doing with Gabriel, Eric, and what we're doing is very important because men can reach these young kids. You know, I believe that the sisters did all they could do. Now it's time for us to do what we can do. My grandson just turned 25 years old. He was one of the few of all my grandchildren that paid attention to me. He followed some direction. He just bought his first house at the age of 24, just turned 25 for $250,000 up in the far Northeast. And he has a lot of, one thing he is teachable. And that's what we have to be able to do. Find those young brothers in particular. I like to talk about the young brothers and those young brothers that are teachable. Let's have these like Eric and Gabriel and myself, so we can have an outlet to reach them. Now, all of them is not teachable, but those who are teachable, we need to find them, grow them. And here's another thing that I found out too. As we reach them and teach them, they become the teacher of those who are unreachable. You see what I'm saying? Because if they start seeing the success in each other, then they want to duplicate that success. And they can be, and I don't like this terminology, but I use it for the sake of using, they become the credible messengers. I'll give you an example. We're working down Rich Island. I'm telling you, you got to come if you can Saturday and see the interaction between us, the OGs, and them young brothers. They are so grateful to have some OGs that every time I'm down, I feel like a rock star. You understand what I'm saying? They open my car door and hey, Mr. Stanley, you know what I mean? And these are the same ones that I'm telling you, it's such a good feeling. So to answer the question, yes, we doing what we doing, the way we doing it, and with the multiplication of those of us who are doing this type of work, it ain't gonna happen overnight. But as we continue to do what we're doing, they'll be knocking on your doors. I want to figure out where my inheritance is at. Because they might not even know that they got the inheritance, but now we have this conversation. I'm gonna tell them to go check your check and see where your inheritance is at, because you might have some that you don't even know you got. So I'm saying all this knowledge has to be transferred to somebody in order for it to have some benefit.
Eric Westbrook, can you let the audience know what's your next events coming up?
Sure. So we just got out of our brother's stroll on Saturday. So our next thing that we're planning on right now is our Black Generational Wealth series. That's in February. So
Okay.
but we will be directing folks to get involved. And so as Stanley has shared, we want to get the word out about what other brothers are doing around the community. So please follow us on Instagram. We have our IG. I'll put it in the chat. On our Facebook page, follow us there. You can keep up on not just the events that we're doing, but other things that are happening in the city that are for Black men and boys. We want to get the word out of what's out there. And but our event will be happening in February of Black History Month, the Black Generational Wealth Series 2022.
Because it is a lot of positive Black young males. I see them all the time. I had a young male up the street. He always comes out to help, help me clean up and organize. Gabriel, tell them your next event that's coming up.
Not to compete with Stanley, because we'll be out there in the morning at 7 a.m. on Saturday, October 2nd. But we have a African-American men's wellness walk. It's going to be at Malcolm X Park. It's going to be a 5K. We were thankful to be at the Brother Stroll last Saturday with Eric and the crew. So this Saturday, October 2nd, we'll be there from 7 to 12 at Malcolm X Park. We're doing a 5K walk, but also we're going to have vendors, more importantly, health screenings. And then also after that, on the 2nd, we're doing actually a series for our seasoned men, I'll say, who are preparing for retirement. What does it mean to retire? What does it mean to think about retirement? What does it mean to look at your account? What should you have in your account?
Do you have a will? Please have that question right there.
I'm going to be giving you a call. You're getting the call so you can be there, actually. You know what I mean? So we're going to need you as a part of that conversation.
Yes.
But as people prepare for retiring, because I work with a lot of older men, various ages. I'll just say older than me. And oftentimes there's still a fear around what does it mean to retire? If you have a family, if the income's coming in, once it stops, what should you do? What, health insurance ideas. And so we're going to talk about all that. That will be coming up in November. A big part of this work, as you know, Tracey, Register of Wills, is the idea that we want to be in the neighborhood, right? Everything can't be downtown, right? Everything can't be inside the city. A lot of things should be, but we want to grab people where they are. So as Eric talked about earlier, the brothers, on the corner, the brothers who are shooting dice, the brothers who are doing whatever, we want them to see us walking in the neighborhood, you know what I mean? And carefully thinking about our health. And those who, let's just say, congregate under the gazebo in Malcolm X Park, right? Those who have made it their daily habitat, we want them to be involved as well. We want them to see that, their health and wellness is important to us. And it's we're important because this is our thriving community. Let's be consistent, y'all. Everybody deserves a second chance. We may not grab these young brothers on the first go round, may not even on the third go round. But I know for a fact, if I think about my journey, I was very hard-headed, family. And so it took a fourth and a fifth and a sixth time for me to finally get it. And so the Gabe of 2021 ain't the Gabe of 96, right? And so use that sense of grace and mercy when it comes to our brothers, and we'll get to where we got to get to.
And I really like the fact how you've taken ownership of Malcolm X Park. And then I tell people that all the time, if I'm like, oh, they coming in, changing things. I'm like, good. Like, okay, it's a skate park over here. I'm going, it's a new playground. And we got to get people out the house. If we get them out the house, so they can breathe, take a deep breath. And this, I didn't even know, I didn't know y'all did. This is like right up my alley because I walk every day. Right,
and
Sharon?
real quick,
don't we walk?
And real quick on that point, because I love seeing the flag next to Stanley. We were able to work with the Friends of Malcolm X Park committee to get the fence repainted this summer, red, black, and green, because a lot of the paint had been chipped and broken. And so we were able to also get the park repainted on the fence. People that know the fence in Malcolm X Park, it's red, black, and green on the fence. We were able to get it repainted this past summer. So it's all about taking ownership of our community so that people understand, where it is,
generational
right?
wealth.
Whose it is. Yes.
Well, I like to thank you all, Stanley. Stanley, you know what? I'm gonna bring my granddaughter out there. I have to come, and I am gonna come to the walk. I'm gonna bring my nephews out. I'm gonna have to drag them away from those dreaded games that my sister lets them play with. But Gabriel, Stanley, Eric,
Can I add
Sharon,
something
and
before
my
we?
staff. Yes.
Yeah, please. Listen, I was born and raised in North Central Philadelphia. I don't have no place to go back home to. The way I was raised at is all gentrified. The housing developments that we're working with, Richard Island, Pentown, and Harrison, is the last vestige of an intact community besides Strawberry Mansion and North Central Philadelphia. I had experience that 11th and Norris is gone. Over there on Susquehanna Dolphin, it's gone. I can't take my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren and say, this is where Pop used to hang out, this is what Pop used to do. So we have to really, and what you're doing, Register Will, is very important for those areas where we still have a strong foothold. Nicetown, Germantown, West Oak Lane, Mount Airy, and these places, we need to be able to use your knowledge, your wisdom, and let them see what happened when we don't value our property, don't take care of it, we become.
Don't make wills. Don't make.
Right.
Mark, put the map up, Mark. Look, I'm gonna let y'all see this map. The blue map right over there, that's the Tangle title. Those are the areas you see. And then see where the gun violence. So we own or think we have ownership in those houses that you see in that dark blue, but they're in dead people's names. They are in dead people's names. It's right around Malcolm X Park. You see, it's almost black. Right around that area, that's the area. Yeah. That whole area, 19132, Stan, that whole area is dark, meaning people are living in those houses and they're still in grandma, grandpa name, great grandma name, great grandpa name. They're gonna lose those houses. They can't get free grant services. They can't leverage it. They can't do anything. They can't even sell it to get the going rate.
And it's one of the precursors register for gentrification. So it makes you vulnerable to developers coming in because you don't have ownership of where you live.
This is why we're gonna continue to get together. Anything you have, our staff will be set out with our pamphlets and leaflets, and we're gonna try to get some resources because enough is enough. If we don't get our house together, we definitely ain't gonna get our wealth together.
That's right.
If you're going into those houses and helping them with their trauma, put some leaflets in there so we can make sure, because at the end of the day, these are family. It's not just one family in these homes. It's uncles, it's layers in these homes. And you're talking about Cobbs Creek Parkway, you're talking about West and Southwest Philly. These ain't, they try to say, oh, they just together, nice structured brick houses, didn't get one puddle during the flood, the last flood, the elements. These houses in Philadelphia is really, and so with my Probate Deferment Initiative program, with the assistance of my solicitor, Sharon Wilson, I created an entire outreach unit. We now are up to 3 people and I have a director. We're going out, we're on every Thursday from 6 to 7, our Plan, Prepare, Protect series. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and we are trying to shout to the top of our lungs that, hey, we need to get ourselves together if we are going to be able to not just survive in Philly, but thrive. And one of the ways that we can change generational wealth is to get to the homes and help them get the legal assistance they need to put the homes in their name. Thank you all. This was great.
Thank you, everyone. It was really good conversation.
Thank you.
This is one of my best. Yeah, I love what you all are doing. It gives me hope.
So me and Eric, we just gonna bounce back and forth on each other's seminars.
Hey, Ernie.
Schools, okay?
Yeah, yes.
Hey,
Ernie, guys.
Bye-bye.
I look forward to working with you all. And we normally never, I'd be like, it's 7 o'clock, it's 7:24. So I am really excited about this Plan, Prepare, Protect. We'll see you all next week. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.